Hot topic: employees of Reddit. What are your horror stories? My high school GF worked there way back in the day. She said the worst part of the day was having to collect merchandise from the fitting rooms and cleaning the fitting rooms. Apparently, all sorts of nasty women would go in there and try on the panties, not use a liner, and just generally leave them all crusty and bad smelling. They would also leave pads and tampons all over. She said they had to throw away so much merchandise that was left in that condition. I feel like this may be a problem anywhere they sell clothes, but then again, Hot Topic may attract a different type of customer, so it might have happened more often. I worked at a Hot Topic in 199200. We used to get a fair amount of strippers that came in, because we were the only place around that sold see-through vinyl bikini tops and 6-inch stack boots and shit like that. Anyway, our fitting room was basically a hole cut in a wall with a mirror and a thick curtain that had to be pulled close just right. This one day, a stripper came in to try on a bunch of stuff and really didn't even bother with the curtain. Apparently, she was so used to people seeing her naked that it wasn't a big deal for her. Granted, this was a weekday morning and she and her boyfriend slash manager slash bodyguard or whatever were the only people in the store besides my manager and me. At one point she just stopped using the fitting room altogether and was just using the full-length mirror on the door to the stockroom slash office. My manager and I really had no idea what to do, because at this point she's got about $1,500 to $2,000 worth of merchandise that she's probably buying, and this lady is good for both business and morale. She didn't seem to be worried at the prospect of anyone seeing her, and the way our store was set up was really narrow and long, and the display fixtures were tall and bulky. It was very difficult to see into and out of the store, unless you were standing in the center aisle. It made loss prevention a nightmare, but really allowed this lady to let her freak flag fly. She finally puts her clothes on at the cash wrapper she's checking out. My manager gave me so much shit after that, because I was so embarrassed that I couldn't even make eye contact with the customer while I rang her up. That was the largest transaction I ever rang up in my time there, and paid for it with the largest wad of cash I'd ever seen in my life up to that point. TL. Dr. A stripper came in on a slow day and treated the store like her own private dressing room. I worked at Hot Topic about 8 years ago. For the most part, the gig was the best part-time job I ever had. Great managers, great co-workers, great customers. Only 2 instances stand out in my mind. 1. This was around when Twilight was big. Middle-aged women would come in and ask where the Edward/Jacob merch was, and then just start fawning over them in the most uncomfortable way. 2. My actual interview. It was a group interview. One of the questions was something about either a difficult customer service moment or something. This one guy, obvious height scene type, proudly talks about the time he worked at a bookstore and sucker punched a female customer in the face for calling his style weird/freaky/something. I never saw that guy again, so I don't think he got the job. I worked for 2 years at my local Hot Topic, and the worst stories both involved the fitting room. Our fitting room used to be a self-service room in the back of the store with a red curtain in front of it. An employee noticed 4 feet in the room and opened it to find 2 people having sex in it and had to clean up the remnants. A second incident came when a smell wafted from the same room. It was later discovered that someone had actually taken a dump in the room when they went in to try on clothes. We ended up fitted the room with a galvanized piece of chain and a master lock to keep the curtain up. Luckily, shortly thereafter, we got a full store overhaul that put in actual fitting rooms. We had to guard the dressing room like a fortress. I had to prevent a teenage girl, and who I thought was her boyfriend, from going in there. I also told her she couldn't take the armful of thongs they'd picked out into the dressing room. She goes, "Daddy, will you hold my panties?" and hands them over, and then tells me he's my stepdad, but I call him daddy. So then her 40-something methed out mom wanders over to confirm that yes, this teenage gigolo is her husband, that he is a few years older than her daughter, that they go to the same high school, and that she finds their whole dynamic adorable. Every time the girl called him daddy, her mom would cackle and tell me she just loves her daddy. They have classes together at school, and she loves telling everyone she goes to school with her daddy. They do everything together. She loves doing stuff with her daddy. Shit almost made me go back to church. Edit. Since this is blowing up, if the story sounds familiar, I posted it on an alt several years back, and it got picked up by a clickbait site, so cast aside by pitchforks. Also no, it wasn't Alabama. Thursday is actually my last day with Hot Topic after 4 years. In general, the company is amazing to its employees and I've met some incredible people. But boy do I have stories! ! 1. I once found a condom on our random section. It was open and filled with something. 2. We had a girl who I'm positive had some mental issue because she would get into the fitting room and try to lure anyone in there to help her, then try and seduce them. She was actually pretty but young and filled to the brim with crazy. 3. Alice Cooper came into the store once, totally unannounced, and brought a teacup pig. Absolutely wonderful person. Gave our metalhead associate tickets to his show and this dude about lost it. 4. Also met Machine Gun Kelly, Mayday Parade, We the Kings, and Maximum Green of Escape the Fate. MGK and the vocalist for WTK were assholes. 5. We had a guy get thrown against the front gate on the morning of a Funko Pop release. In general, the job has taught me some pop collectors are grads assholes. 6. Had a woman ask me if she should go back to stripping after her C-section, then lifted her shirt to show me the scar and her tits. 7. We found out there was a group of malrats who wrote fanfiction about the staff at our store. I never got to see any, and I'm glad for that. Not a horror story, but a ridiculous short one. I had a woman come in with her sleeping infant and screamed at me to turn off the music while she strolled around the store. I mean, if your baby is sleeping and you want them to continue, maybe don't come to browse the store that you can hear music blasting from the other side of the mall. IDK what to tell ya, haha. I've been in a few HTs though where the music was so ducking loud it was actually hurting my ears. Made me feel old. Maybe that's the gatekeeper. If it's too loud, you're too old to shop here. I was working on the sales floor and this guy, at least in his 30s and pretty high, starts making sexual comments to me about this 15-ish girl that was checking out. I asked him to leave and nothing more came of it, but it was chilling. Also had a co-worker get fired because they were selling weed out of the back room. She'd sneak it into their bag while they were checking out. Also had a different, off-duty, co-worker come in hammered late one night to tell everyone working how great we were. That was actually kinda nice. Besides that, it was a lot of kicking out vaping teenagers and letting the quiet girls from my school try on skimpy Harley Quinn bikinis in the dressing room. Edit. Grammar. Worked there for 13 years. So much weird, but that's just retail in general. Caught a guy masturbating into women's shoes in the dressing room. People had sex in there more often than you'd be comfortable with. I worked for them when Columbine happened. We carried a brand of clothing back then called Serial Killer, which featured pop culture pics / references and some edgy saying, like a pic of Bruce Lee that said revenge or something like that. The morning after Columbine happened, we got an email to pull all the Serial Killer clothing line off the sales floor, as well as every trench coat in the store. By the end of the day, it already had to call security twice due to people showing up at the store and harassing me for supporting those psychos and training the next ones. Then the TV networks showed up and pretty much camped the front of our store, harassing every customer as they walked in / out, asking them why this dark lifestyle attracted them. The mall ended up having security just hang out in front of our store and walking our employees to their cars for a week afterward. Honestly, it was the best job I ever had. The company was really supportive at the corporate level. I still have friends that work there. They pretty much left me alone, so long as I made sales. So I had carte blanche to set up my stores the way I wanted, even if it didn't look like the planned merchandising setups they sent out. I had direct access with every debt, so if I felt my stores couldn't sell something they sent us, they'd let me transfer it somewhere else, and vice versa. Get more bestsellers in. Honestly, if it wasn't for the working every weekend and closing a lot stuff, I would have continued working there. Former employee. I worked a whole 3 months in summer, so all the kids were out and about. I was stocking Disney merchandise, and I couldn't help but notice a kid underneath one of our clearance racks. I heard some strange noise coming from there too, so I crouched under and look at the kid. He had a button needle and all, in his mouth. I asked him where his parents were, and before I knew it, he swallowed the pin and ran out of the store. I couldn't leave and go search for the child, so I let security know about the button kid. Never knew what happened after that. I can't seem to forget button kid though. Spent almost 5 years working at one in the early 2000s. Being in the Midwest, we had a ton of jugglers, but they were actually pretty nice people in general. I had a group of kids ask what I would do if they set some clothes on fire and flicked a lighter multiple times. We mostly got weirdos who wanted to bang in the dressing room or lifted up their shirts to ask me what gauge their nipple ring is. We had this one girl who came in weekly and I don't think she was all there. She would sit at the listening station for way too long and then leave. One day she sat down and put the headphones on. She had a plastic bag with her filled with empty glass bottles and peaches, yes, the fruit. We noticed it was leaking onto the floor, but just let her do her thing. She put the headphones back and looked at her leaking bag. She had a mildly disappointed look on her face, but immediately looked at her watch and yelled, "I'm going to miss my bus." She ran out of the store and up to a trash can outside the store. She held the bag up high and yelled, "Peaches, meet your fate," threw the bag in the trash and sprinted off. That job was weird. Former employee of a couple years in high school. I loved that job. The biggest horror story that sticks out in my mind was this guy that would always come in with his kids. He was a huge Ike fan, and from the looks of it, he let his kids, both boys, they were I'd guess maybe 7 and 8 at the time, listen as well. They always had Hatchet Man stuff on and pretty beachin' haircuts. They always misbehaved, just running around the store screaming, sometimes crashing into stuff, and the dad gave no ducks. He was often pretty rude to us in the store about not having specific merch or being out of stuff in his size. He was a large guy. I had and still have no business in what that guy does with his kids, but I always felt a little bad that there was a good chance they would end up in a bad way. Other than that reoccurring instance, for the most part our store was really fun. I worked for Hot Topic for about 7 years. My store was apparently the Gigolo store of the district, and I think the state. Working for that company, as long as I did, I was pretty used to ignoring people's crappy taste, but the juggalos were different. This is in Central Florida, so it's on average about 90 degrees most days and always humid as hell. These kids were always very overweight, wearing a massive black Ike tee, those ridiculous 30-pound black trip pants with huge pockets and all the hardware chains and straps hanging from them, and they were drenched in sweat. Their hygiene was almost always awful. They always seemed to show whenever a new Ike shirt or collectible would arrive and would smell up the store and pain wadded up, sweat-soaked money. It was just all around unpleasant. The smell would linger for a bit after they left. It was not pleasant. This is my time to shine. I was helping a lady at the Disney section. She was pretty particular about the things she wanted and was asking if they looked okay enough for her. Being my first job, I was really enthusiastic about being a salesperson, and I really do love Disney. So I was hyping her up the best I could, and we are laughing together, getting along really well. Then she says, "Yeah, I wanted to get all the same things my boyfriend's baby mama has. Is that weird?" Literally did not know how to respond. I said it wasn't and cashed her out quick. This was my first job in my college town, and generally, I absolutely loved it. You're treated like some super cool mini celebrity by all the little mall rats. The management was generally great to their employees, and the work wasn't too hard in my small low volume store. However, there was the issue of Valentine's Day. That year they were promoting all these different corsets and lingerie, as well as the Get in Our Pants campaign for the skinny jeans. Management wanted the employees to try and show the corsets not just as lingerie, but as fashion items, maybe paired with the skinny jeans. Increase sales and all. So there I am, Valentine's Day, in a black corset and tight black skinny jeans and boots. Way more sexy than 18-year-old me with a still developing body was comfortable with. In comes Creepy McCreeper, a 50+ something dude who says he wants to buy something for his wife, but wants some help picking it out. Not once did his eyes look at my face. The entire time I'm helping him, he's staring at my ass or chest and making weird comments about how I remind him of his daughter, or being uncomfortably comfortable telling me explicit details about his wife's body. He then asks me to try it on and show him, so he could see how it would look on his wife. Luckily, shy 18-year-old me awkwardly laughed it off and got him past the register and out of the store. I loved that job, but Jesus, did it draw some weirdos.